Hello and welcome to Mike's Garage. In our last video, we installed the oil pump on this 74-inch Shovelhead. Today we're going to do the cam chest, gear case, whatever you want to call it, the cam side of this motor. Well, the first thing you do when putting a cam chest together, obviously everything is already on the pinion shaft because we never took that apart. But the first thing is to fit the breather gear. Breather gear has already been washed. It's clean. We're not going to put any lube on it yet because now we're going to set the end play in it. This is the factory shim, or the last one that someone put in here. And so we'll put it on there. The other thing is you put the gasket on. This is a little trick I learned from a kid who went to Harley school and learned it, and I thought, that's so easy. What a nice idea. You put take two quarter 20 bolts. You can use this for aligning your outer primary cover. You'll find a bunch of uses for this. You cut the heads off of a couple of bolts, and you've got them. So you thread them in place, and I can put the gasket there, and it won't fall off. Because in order to measure the end play of this breather gear, I need to have the gasket stay in place. And there it is, it's in place. So with the breather gear in place and the shim, we need a straight edge to go across here. And what this straight edge is for is to measure how much room we have in here. And we have, I already measured it, about 10 or 11 thousandths. Now, when you figure that out, actually I think it had about 11. At any rate, the factory wants 5 thousandths of end play, 5 thousandths or less. I like to go on the high side and have a good 5 in there. Now, when you put the cover on, it crushes the gasket. So you take your measurement with a feeler gauge, and then you subtract 6 thousandths from that measurement. Because when the gasket crushes, of course the cover is going to go deeper. So we've got that done. It's now done. If in fact we need a different size shim, these come in all the sizes. You can find them at your local shop. Now, for our purposes, I'm going to take this breather gear out of the way now so that when I set the cam in place, I don't have to mess with it. I can put it in last. The next thing is to install the cam. Now, I have the shim that was in here last. Let's see if that's it. I don't remember. I think it was 60 thousandths. This one is 60 thousandths. You put the shim on the cam, and this little thrust plate goes right on there. Goes on first. Okay? Now we're going to put the cam in place. We already have a new cam bearing installed. We're not timing it yet. We don't really care where it goes. And there it is, it's in place. Now what I didn't do is put a new seal in the cam cover. I've already lubed up this seal, and I'm going to put it in place. I don't know if you can see that, Fred, but I'm just using a socket and an extension and my trusty little rawhide mallet to sink that new cam seal in there. Now everyone's going to say, Mike, you didn't show us how to remove that seal. I'm sorry. I had to take it out to get this thing clean after it came back from the polisher. Now I'm satisfied that that seal is well in there You could hear it on that last strike. And there it is. I greased it up and I put it in so it would slide in real nice and easy. Okay, that being said, gee, it's really nice to have these bolts here for alignment. And the gasket doesn't move. Check, make sure it's on its own alignment pins. Golly. And on it goes. Now, once you've got it on, you can take those alignment pins off. I'm calling them alignment pins, these cut-off bolts. And what we're going to do is install a couple of bolts to hold that cover nice and tight. I'll put one over here. And I'll put one over here. So you're simulating what it'll be like when the machine is in operation. Tighten them up good. Okay. Now, I don't know if we can get the camera over here. Seems I put that thrust plate in slightly backwards, but that's all right. We're going to pull it out again anyway. But I can feel that cam moving back and forth. So now I'll take a feeler gauge and my trusty flashlight, and I can get in there. And there is not enough play in there. I've only got, let's see how many thousandths I have. I'm going to try to get 5 in there. Well, 5 slid right in. And 6 slid right in. Not anywhere near as tight as I thought it was. 7 does not. Well, according to some people, that's enough. I'd like a little more. So what I'm going to do is pull the cover back off. Now you'll notice I'm keeping the bolts in order over here so I know which ones go where. And I can pull this cover off, which is the same way we removed the cover on the teardown. And of course, I forgot a 9/16 wrench for this tool. Well, I'm going to have to unplug and go get a 9/16 wrench. I'll be right back. And I believe that was quicker than last time. So here we go. Put these little screws in here. Again, this is much better than prying the cover off. There must be buffing rouge in those holes, because I know I cleaned this thing so well. Yeah, see, that one's going in there real well, and this one is not. There we go. And off comes the cover. It's kind of a Mickey Mouse thing to do, but for the purpose of this video, I wanted to be able to get that off of there. So we'll get the puller back off, and I will run a tap down those holes later. I don't think anyone needs to see me run a tap down those holes. Okay, and the puller is off. And I'll put my thumb on the cam so I can slide the cover off. There it is. Okay. Put the gasket back in place. Those little guide screws back in. Now, I'd like more clearance in this cam, more end play. So I will be very happy to put a slightly smaller shim in there. Okay, now this one measures 60. I'd like to find a 55. Let's see if I have a 55. That one's over 60. That one's over 60. And this one is over 80. Those are 70. I believe there's a 55 in here somewhere, which is what I would like. There's a 55. That would make me happy. Cam shims are about $3 or $4 a piece. It's not a big deal. So now I feel this thing is going to work just fine. Based on that, I'm going to time it. I'm going to lube it and put it in place, most likely for the last time. Again, here we go with assembly lube. Put it on there, put it on the lobes. I can actually reach a lot of this stuff once it's in the motor because the lifter blocks are out. Might even take a little bit of that assembly lube and run it right around the bearing in there. Make sure that's got lube on it. Don't want that to be dry at startup. There we go. Assembly lube all over that. And maybe we'll get some on the gear. Yeah. All on the lobes on the gear. And I'll be a happy boy. Everybody like that sound? I wonder if that'll come out on the video. Gee, I hope so. There we go. That's what I wanted to hear. Anyway, we got assembly lube everywhere here, and that's what I wanted. So now, that thrust plate is in the right orientation. Can you see that? Okay. Now, let's see. Can you... There are two timing marks on this gear. Get that right there so we can see it. There's one here and one here. Okay. So we're going to rotate the cam. Until, okay, now I had already turned the flywheel assembly to the right spot on that gear. Now, let's see if I light this up with a flashlight. I believe you can see the timing mark right there on the pinion gear. And the timing mark, if I do it kind of sideways, maybe that helps a little. Is that better? There. Can we see the gear has its timing mark there? And there's the timing mark on the flywheels, on the pinion gear. Right there. Does that light up, I hope? And there's one more timing mark right here. This timing mark will line up with the breather gear. So now, I will lube up this breather gear, hopefully with great sound effects. No sound effects, sorry. Okay, let's put some assembly lube on that, because we don't want to tear up the bore in the case where this gear goes in. This is, again, I mentioned this when we took this thing apart, that it was a low mileage motor, and everything in it is in pretty good shape. But it had been sitting for years. Again, we'll get some assembly lube all on that gear. Same thing on the shim. And while it's open here, we can see the timing mark on the breather gear. Does that show up good? I hope. There. Now we're going to slide the breather gear in place. And we're going to line up that timing mark on the breather gear with the timing mark on the cam gear. And there it is. Now, if you question yourself on that, you might want to turn that flywheel assembly just a little bit and say, oh yeah, those do, they line up perfectly. See it? This one's here and this one's here. We're good to go. And if I did that right, the end play and the cam is going to be fine. The end play on the breather is going to be fine. And no, I didn't unplug myself. All right. There it is. Everything in there is good to go. So all we need to do now is to carefully slide the cam cover back on. And there it is. And put all of the bolts in now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Pardon me, I stepped on a power cord. Okay. So we'll get all of these screws tightened down. I have a tendency to crisscross on just about everything I do. And the habit that's just always been with me. And I do love this polished cam cover. And with all of this in place, we can now torque it with a torque wrench. I believe the torque is around 80 inch-pounds. This wrench is already set at 50 because we used it about 5 minutes ago. So there's 50 there, 50 there, 50 there, 50, that's all 6 of them, and we'll go up to 80. 80 inch-pounds is what these are supposed to be, according to the service manual. $80, $80, $80, $80, $80, and $80. One quick check now, and I'm going to get the flashlight in here, and I'm going to see how much end play that cam has. Now I'd like to see about 11 thousandths. That's 11 and it doesn't want to go in. 8, 9, 10, there's 10. Now the easiest way to get to that thing is by going through the rear lifter block hole. Well, there's 10 and it's not going in, which means to me, and this is a trial and error thing, we'll try 8, which we'd be fine at 8, really. If it's less than 8, it's less than I'd like. Oh, it's 8 easy. Let's go to 9, see if it slides in there. It's 8. According to the factory, that's more than adequate, so we're okay. I think I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to buy a thinner cam shim than the one that's in there. By about 5 thousandths thinner. And if I do that, I'll be happy with it. But now you know how to do it. I'm going to pull it off again, and I'm going to go to a little bit thinner cam shim. I'd like a little more end play in there. So there it is. It's going together. And I think that's enough on that video. Again, if you like what you're seeing, you're learning what you want, hearing what you want, or just having a good time, please subscribe. But until then, until next time, when we put the, well, we aren't going to put the heads on a video because we've already installed heads on a video. We've already installed upper oil lines on a video. So maybe we'll do the lifter blocks, the lifters, and adjust the valves. But until then, see you out on the road.